What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for September 21st, 2020. If this is your first week in review, what these videos are is I basically take all of the official Star Citizen news from each week, put them into one video, and then insert my opinions on them a little bit as well. So if you guys do enjoy these videos, make sure you hit the like button, leave comments below, and if you really enjoy them, hit the subscribe button as well. Also, I do live stream on Twitch 6 days a week, every day but today, so I can get this video out for you. So make sure you check me out there at twitch.tv/SaltEMike. All right, we do sort of have some patch notes updates this week. Evocati 3.11 is in testing. Now again, I am a member of Evocati, so while in certain situations like this, I don't necessarily agree with the NDA on patch notes and discussions of those, but I do respect it. So for me personally, I have been given this opportunity by a game of this type to be a live streamer and a YouTuber and possibly turn this into a career one day by this company that makes this game. And if they ask me to not share, whether I'm under NDA or not, if they don't want that stuff out there, I just feel it's like a moral obligation not to. That's just how I feel about it. I know a lot of people are like, but they're not open enough, and you know, it's a conversation for another day, but I'm just kind of sharing my thoughts about it. Is if a company asks you not to share something, and especially if you're monetizing it, man, I just won't do it, you know? All right, moving on to roadmap updates. This one's pretty big, and this actually does tie into a little bit of 3.11 sort of patch notey stuff. And we'll start with roadmap roundup. So the first thing on roadmap roundup is the relaxation of Armistice zones. So there's no FPS combat around rest stops, but they opened it up to ship combat. There was a post from Luke Presley, and Molly made the post initially, dealing with these changes and allowed players to ask questions about them. So first, there are some destructible defenses that have been placed around the rest stops. These are size 4 guns. And then there are also size 6 sentries that we saw in the Claim Jumper missions and size 10 turrets. The destructible turrets are on a 5-minute cooldown, so they will be destructed, and in 5 minutes, they'll respawn. The game will also add up all of the crime stats in that given area, and then respond with AI ships in relation to that crime stat. So, or that average crime stat, or however it's done. It will also spawn stronger ships based on the height of that crime stat number. They're calling that heat. Armistice violation is a new crime. If you damage other ships or the station defenses in the zone, this will only stay on a player's account for 1 day. I assume that's a 24-hour, whether you're logged in or not, cycle, similar to like jail. If you have a crime stat and you enter the zone, you are warned that you'll be fired upon. So that's like the 4 major updates about the relaxation of Armistice zones, but then there were a couple responses from Luke from feedback in the thread. If you lock a missile in an Armistice zone, you get a felony. Eventually, AI should be able to target and shoot these missiles down as well, but if anybody plays the game Star Citizen, we're aware that the AI is incapable of shooting just about anything. If you're outside the zone and lock on a missile, you get no crime, but the zone is so large that it encapsulates the widest range of a missile lock, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Unless you're like right on the edge of the zone is what my assumption is. Also, each station has its own comm array that cannot be turned off. So any damages, anything done will always be reported for the time being. But I think the plan is with some of these EVA missions that we saw in a sprint report in the past on an ISC, that those will likely be to like turn off and turn on comm arrays at these actual rest stops. The next thing for roadmap roundup was spacescaping getting added to 3.12. These are the gas clouds that we saw on ISC pretty recently, so hopefully those will make it into 3.12 because they look pretty cool. And there seems to be possibly quite a bit to do around them. Ship AI and hazard awareness avoidance has moved from 3.11 to 3.12 because of spacescaping, so there's overlapping work between the two apparently, so the change was pushed out to fall in line with that. As far as things moving to polishing, it was updated ground textures and updated geology that we've seen a lot of recently. For the Reddit roadmap, 3.11 is up 21% with the polishing of the ground textures and geology completing, as well as some minor progress through the rest of the patch. Also, the move of that AI task from 3.11 to 3.12 helps with that overall progress as well. 3.12 lost progress because they gained spacescaping and the AI hazard awareness. Now, moving on to video updates, we had an ISC where they started out with new UI for Inventories. Very excited for this.
In the next iteration, the feature is being iterated on to allow players to interact with inventory outside of themselves, and that's going to be with a new user interface.
So the inventory is still accessed the same way as it was previously. The player can either go to the personal inner thought and click on the inventory slot, or then press the keybind that by default is Y, and that will bring the inventory screen. On the left side of the screen, the player will see the different containers that currently has equipped. These containers can be equipped through the PMA, like before, and then every time an item is stored, they will be stored on these containers.
All right, this looks pretty good. I think the hollow stuff, I don't know what the obsession with it is really. I would prefer it to not be, to be honest with you, but that's fine. I think the biggest takeaway here is that there's separate storages for your backpack, chest, and leg. I think the ability to split and drag is also, was not an option currently and will be an option in the future here, which is very exciting. The split one is big for a lot of functionality, sharing with your friends, things like that, right? Then they kind of previewed the external inventory at the beginning of that clip, so now they're going to go into much more detail here.
With this iteration of the inventory, you can also have the possibility to access inventories that are external to the player. So currently, the use case we have is the grain rock.
The intention is to allow you to interact with things outside of your character and then interact with the inventory within that. So if you're wandering around with your multi-tool lasering rocks and your inventory is getting full, you can just go and dump the contents of your backpack into the back of your grin rock instead. Future releases, we're definitely going to see a lot more using this feature. What I'm personally looking forward to is, I already enjoy making corpses, but at some point I'm going to be able to start riffling through them and seeing what's in their inventory as well.
I love this. The ability to utilize our ship and vehicle inventories in the future. For right now, it's just the Grey Cat Rock, but yeah, that's huge. That's literally game-changing for so many things, for pirates, for just economy players, for anything. It's a big change. I think, the biggest thing that they did share here, though, is the plan for future releases to be able to loot players and other NPCs. That'll really change the game for me. The biggest change that needs to come along with that, though, is some consequence for death, because dying and losing a few things that you gathered, while that sucks, I wonder how it's going to play out in a game that has permadeath, right? So the consequence for death should be really strong. Maybe you don't die. Maybe you just get blacked out and can be dragged around and your inventory can get looted, and then eventually you wake up more often. I feel like some changes need to be prioritized in that direction as they roll out the looting as well. I guess looting initially would be okay, but very soon after that, some prioritization and focus on things like risk and reward and punishment for actual death, I think is going to be really important for a game like Star Citizen, because in the long term, death of a spaceman is still a thing. Then we had a sprint report where they showed off the refinery decks. I think we all know that refinery decks, cargo decks will most likely be pretty visual experiences for right now. They also did more planet updates with the new painting and all these things they've been talking about. Great, they look awesome. The new sand, though, that they've showed, it just looks like footsteps. It doesn't look like windscape sand that you would expect to see from a normal human experience on Earth. So I think that looks a little bit weird. They also showed a pyro moon with a reddish color. It looks cool, but it also looks like a typical Star Citizen moon. It looks really cool, but not much to interact with or touch and feel and play with. And then lastly, this one was a big one for me, is homesteads. They turned the 2D sketches of homesteads that we saw on the last environmental sprint report into 3D ones. And if you check here, there's some labels on some of these things that seem like they have some functionality, and that's really cool. And for me, honestly, guys, I've been kind of a little bit burnt out on Star Citizen. I'm just uninterested in it. I don't feel the progress is moving in a direction or quickly enough for the game to keep me interested all the time. And when I saw this, I was brought right back in. This brought me back to my Ultima Online days. I think this probably brought people back to their Star Wars MMO days. Like, you know, I think it was Star Wars Galaxies. Is that what that was called? I don't remember because I never played it. But a lot of people talk about that when owning property, owning homes, making cities, things like that. This really reels me back in and just gets me... It gets my imagination roaring again, and I think that's what the Star Citizen funding model and the Star Citizen phenomena really is their ability to spark your imagination. And I'm sparked again, and I'm so excited. Moving on to SCL, again, this is another show that's more about game development and less about playing of the game. The only thing they really touched on here was that Turbulent has a lot more to Star Citizen than people might think, which obviously makes sense because Star Citizen bought a portion of them. So yeah, moving on to other updates now, we had an additional thread similar to the Armistice Zone thread with Luke Presley about law changes coming to 3.11, so we'll highlight some of that discussion here. The first big change is how you are arrested. If you're attacked by an NPC player who is valid to arrest you, a timer will now start. It'll be about 1 to 3 minutes. If you die during that timer, you go to jail. If you quantum travel away, no jail, no timer. If you kill them, I assume the timer also stops, but this wasn't addressed in the thread. You can now press charges as well, I assume with the notifications on the top of the screen. Party members are auto-ignored, and you could... Currently, party members are auto-ignored, and you can never press charges against them, but now you have the option to. This is to prevent players from unknowingly joining a party just to be lured in and killed, especially things like when you're able to loot people in the future. This is a good change to get on top of now. This also protects people who gather to organize PvP battles. So now there's no fear of crime stat. You can have as big of a battle as you want with as many people as you like on opposite sides. Some killing has been reduced to manslaughter when it tends to be an accident, like crushing players with a vehicle, explosive barrels, or self-destruct. Every kill of a player on a ship is now manslaughter, so if you board a ship and kill the players on them, each kill is manslaughter, but the pilot remains murder. Next is the first missile change discussion that's been official. If you lock a missile on a ship, or you go red to them, they can attack back with no penalty. If you do this to an NPC, cop, or security officer, this triggers the assaulting an officer crime. So that's a little minor missile updates, but we expect to hear more in the future about 3.11. Quantum travel snare will now give you a crime stat when you actually snare a ship, not when you just turn it on. Only when you snare a ship, and you will get an additional crime rate per ship you snare. Also, if you dampen a ship, this is preventing it from going into quantum travel, you have the right to arrest that ship. For example, if you're on a bounty mission and you want to prevent that person from jumping away, because that's, the most annoying thing, then you will not get a crime stat for that. But if there's another blue player that you are not at liberty to arrest, you will. You can get out of the pilot seat. You cannot get out of the pilot seat to avoid security scans anymore. You used to be able to, now you can't. And they fixed a bunch of ATC and landing pad related bugs causing crimes that people were innocent of. Moving on, we have a sneak peek. Cure Life medical gun. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the updates to medical gameplay. Star Citizen has too much death for a game with permadeath, right? Too much death. Like we talked about the consequence of death before to sort of make people want to avoid it. But then in general, there's just too much death. So the idea of it not happening is really important for a game that has permadeath, right? Like not happening that often. This is vital to be able to envision that experience of the game, right? That's a visionary part of the game, and in order to experience that, medical gameplay is very important. There was a fly like a pirate screenshot contest. These are pretty cool. I'm not big on the screenshot contest, guys. I really, I'm big on the game, and I think the screenshots of the game are like this misrepresentation of what is possible a lot of the time. But this one is very cool. I really enjoyed it. So link will be in the description if you want to check out more of those screenshots. Galactapedia update. Cherry is pumping out more articles. As always, lore post. We had another candidate for Imperator interview. And lastly, there were 2 dev response posts, one on audio and the other on stars and stations. This one was cool. They plan on updating the stars in the systems in the future, with work being done in Pyro, as they think the star there is pretty cool. So again, links to those are in the description, and that'll do it this week, guys. So thank you so much for watching this week. It's been a rough week. We lost a member of the community, Wickstrom. I will post his GoFundMe for his mother who had been taking care of him that went into debt. Wickstrom did contract cancer, or I guess you can't contract cancer, but Wickstrom had cancer and unfortunately passed away this week. And he was a good friend, and he was a very big member of the community early on, at least the Star Citizen streaming community. And I know he's touched many, many people across the entire Star Citizen community. But yeah, a sad week, and rest in peace, Wickstrom. You will be missed, my friend. Everyone have a great day. Thank you so much for watching.